Let's discuss this. Here we go. On 3, 2, 1. We are speaking with a Canadian artist, Danko Jones, and as we say here in Montreal, bonjour, Monsieur Danko. Comment allez-vous?
Bonjour.
How are you?
I'm doing okay.
You're doing good. There's so much to talk about, and what's interesting about today's chat is that we're really not here to promote anything. We just figured we'll have a discussion, and I was listening to your podcast with Darby Mills, and you were talking about Todd Kearns, and let me start with that, with the Danko Jones podcast. Talk to me about why you wanted to get into podcasting, because you do have a platform with the music. You can write a song, you can go out there and perform. Well, these days you can't go out there and perform it, but normally you can go out there and perform it. What was interesting for you to get into the podcasting and just get into the spoken word portion of, getting a message out there?
Well, I mean, I've been doing a podcast since 2011, so this year it's going to be 10 years I've been doing one. But I actually started, and I found old episodes back in 2005. I actually did a podcast because our then webmaster told me that you should do these things called podcasts. And they just turned out to be like what the band was doing on the road for a period of 1 or 2 weeks. And I did about 8 or 10 of them. I've always just, when we play live, the banter that I do in between the songs sometimes lasts longer than the songs that we play. So I've always been kind of a bit of a chatterbox, and the podcast is a great medium, platform, forum to get certain opinions and, just things that I want to say or can say out.
Well, let me ask you about that, because my whole thing has always been to stay very much out of the politics and just post about music, and I don't give opinions on who I vote or don't vote for and stuff. You're very different in that respect, that you do get out there and talk about it. I mean, just going through your Twitter today, you're talking about John Schaefer and you're talking about... Is that something that you need to do for your own sort of, personal beliefs or edification? And is it dangerous as an artist to put out your opinions on that? Because you see when Tommy Lee does it, or people are always tweeting, and, oh, you should just shut up and you sing your songs. What's your take on being active and having that voice and just being the guy who sings the songs?
I mean, lots of bands just sing the songs, and that's fine. And really, for a certain amount of time, that's all we did. But these last few years have been pretty charged. And I think, silence is complicity when what I see is really brazen racism in our faces and in the music industry. When I see it, I have to say something about it. If I don't, I feel like I am kind of complicit in a way. And I'm not gonna take any extremist point of view. Basically, my whole point of getting political, if you will, is just like, don't be racist, don't be homophobic, don't be sexist. Real simple things that I think should be reiterated if people aren't aware. And plus, we sing a lot about, or I sing a lot about sex. A lot of the lyrics are charged with sex and about relationships and what have you. So being who I am, looking like I do, in the place that I do it in, we've always been a political band, whether I say anything political or not. And that's just people finding out about that now. So even though I don't, I haven't really aired any political views up until maybe the last few years. Like I said, we've always been a political band just because of the placement of our band, the positioning that I'm in, et cetera, et cetera. But I really feel like lately, I've wanted to say something publicly about, certain topics on racism. In this past summer, there was like Blackout Tuesday, and, there was things that are happening there. And I felt in that small window of time, one day I was allowed to, or a week, I should say, I was allowed to kind of air some of my opinions on what I've always been feeling. And that window was given to me. I didn't pry it open. It was given to me. So it's not as if I'm kind of breaking down any doors or anything, or being provocative or controversial, just to drum up some sort of promo or anything. I just feel the need that it has to be said, and I know anything I say isn't going to make any difference. But drops in the bucket,
Well,
do.
yeah. See, I disagree. I think that when enough people speak out, it does make a difference, and I think a lot of little drops in the bucket fill a bucket.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like, I know this tweet isn't going to change the world, but it's one more tweet out there, and like you said, yeah.
And I want to bring, because I'm going to take up two things on there, that when you say nothing, you're complicit. But I want to get to this first. I have a friend, my best friend, Jeremy. He's native. He's Mohawk, and this is what was tweeted to him last week. And this is why I agree with what you're doing. It says, Jeremy, and this was on Twitter, "You're way too pale to be a native. Stop with the act. And if you are, you're a drug addict and tobacco smuggling leech, and you should pay your taxes like everyone else. Fuck you, you pale-skinned fake native white." And that's why we need people like you talking about it. And that's why we need to be speaking out about it, because that was... it's outrageous. It's completely fucking outrageous. And nobody should be subjected to that at any time in their life. Period. End of story.
Yeah. It's such an unfortunate tweet that your friend got.
Yes.
And whoever tweeted that out is scum.
Yes.
But I feel like, even though we're known as a really good time rock band, and we're not the Clash. Let's put it that way. And like I was saying before, our lyrics are about sex and relationships and guys and girls and men and women and dating and whatever have you, or whatever. It's fine for me to do. It's fine for me to sing. I think I've always kept the lyrics pretty up and up. Everyone can come through it. There's nothing wrong with singing about some woman that you're attracted to or that you're in love with. No. And so I've always been pretty confident with our lyrics and the way we've presented our band and our music. And of course, none of the songs have anything to do with a certain set of politics. And Twitter is not a song. Tweets are not songs. But I feel...
Though there's a concept right there to turn them into songs. But Jeremy is, he's one of, he's on the Beat 92 in Montreal. He's one of our top
so he's
DJ.
In the public eye.
He's in the public eye, and that's why he was targeted. And you're in the public eye and stuff. But let me ask you about being complicit, because I try to run my socials just very neutral on everything, not because I don't have feelings about things, but just because I want to have a respite where people can just come and see the album of the day or the song of the day and not get caught up in, because it ends up just being you bash me, I bash you bash this, you bash that, and then the whole conversation gets taken over. I would disagree that makes me complicit in this stuff. I think that I offer a sort of an alternative service where you have a safe place where you can just come and be the rock fan and not have to be bombarded with. I mean, am I wrong? And be honest. Do you think I'm wrong?
Complicity.
Okay.
There's certain kinds of complicity. I think you doing what you do, playing rock songs for people, you have a choice. You can do it. You can be political. You can, I don't want to say political, but you can air an opinion or two every now and then, or you can choose not to. It's not going to change what you are there in the public eye to do, which is serve people records. Now, you can say the same thing about me. I'm just a singer. I should stay in my lane. And for the most part, I do.
Right. But I'm not saying that about you. I think you do what you do, and Tommy Lee does what Tommy, and that's fine. And when you go there, you get that. but I don't know. I just don't think I need to do it.
I don't think you need to feel guilty
Right.
or feel weird about not jumping in the fray with us
Right.
and saying what we say.
Okay.
Because I think you're not staying in your lane by just playing records. Like you said, you just want it to be a place where people can get away from all that
Right.
stuff. And there should be places like that, don't take a side or anything. And I don't take a side. I think racism in 2021 has been put to the forefront of pop culture. And so I am part of that. And I'm looking like I am and doing what we do, and the way I present myself in public, which is basically screaming in your face. And I feel that, first of all, I don't think I'm off brand by just being very opinionated about things, the way I present myself at a show. But you shouldn't feel guilty for not doing it. I shouldn't feel guilty, but for me personally, I do feel guilty if I don't say anything, just because of how I'm positioned publicly, and it just for me, just so I can be okay with me.
Yeah, and I think, by the way,
I feel like I'm representing, or I look at how I looked at other people when I was 14 years old, getting into music as a a visible minority, and just how it meant so much when someone was there. Like, for example, Sacrifice, or watching Joe Rico, watching the guys in Death Angel, watching Soundgarden, like first lineup, all that stuff really made impressions on me. Caton from Hyrax, finding out about the Bad Brains, those bands meant a lot to me, and I can just see, when I'm not in that position, but I am in the public eye. So I just feel to be okay with myself, air an opinion or two. And why you think I'm political now as opposed to not before was, it's like the times are charged.
The time, I know.
We're talking on the day that it's Donald Trump's last day in the office, and we just had a failed insurrection of the of the American political system last week. So yeah, it's very charged. And for me to not say something, especially when it affects like the scene with John Schaefer and Iced Earth and Stu Block and all these guys, I'm a loudmouth by nature, man. I'm on brand on this, and I'm
not saying you're off brand. What I'm trying to say is, I think we're both right in this, is that when Tommy Lee or you, somebody says something, let them say it. That when somebody tweets and goes, you should just shut your mouth and be a rock star. No, you should be who you are. And when I decide to just, play, people should just go, fine. Like, I think none of us deserve criticism, quite frankly. I think we do what we do.
I'm not go, hey, Mitch.
Yeah.
You got to start speaking up.
I know. But I do. It's funny because I do get those once in a while. Like, hey, why don't you swell? And I'm like, because that's not. Anyway. But.
No, you know what?
But the John Schaefer thing, by the way, that gets to me because I literally. I'm trying to think about it. Was it September of 2019? Anyway, like in the last year and a half, I actually sat on a bus with him because I didn't know. I was told go interview him, so I went to interview him, and then I see him on TV in the Capitol, and I went, "Oh fuck!" It makes you sort of reflect, and I was just like, "Oh, dang." That's a bit of a rough one to put, but. Let's get back to music here for a second. Not to get away from the political stuff, because I didn't want to do this all political stuff. But
no, I don't want to either. I the one thing I'm kind of hoping, like, future interviews don't just revolve around like politics, because I'm not a political guy.
No, I want to talk about the music business, because yesterday I was talking to Mike Reno of Loverboy, and we were talking about how back in the day. In Vancouver, you had Bruce Fairbairn and Bryan Adams and Bruce Allen and Mark LaFrance, and everybody was just like together in a team, and we're sort of hanging out, and they made all these great records. And he was telling me how he sang background vocals on Living on a Prayer and stuff. Does that still exist in Canada? Do we still have that sort of community where we just sort of hang out? And is there a hot spot right now? And for you as Danko Jones, because you've been doing this, well, the first album was what, 202, 203?
Yeah, but that was 5 years into us being a band.
Right.
Or 6 years.
6 years into us being a band. How is the Canadian industry these days for an up-and-coming band? I mean, is it easy to make your place? Are you still sandboxed as, oh, you're a Canadian band, you'll always be a Canadian band. Don't ask us to bring you over to England. Just, be happy that you're playing Toronto. How is it right now to get a band going and be a band?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this thing for now. This year is going to be 25 years we've been doing this, JC and I. And I have no idea of the scene. I mean, I know other bands, other Canadian bands, rock bands, and, metal friendly type rock bands or what have you. I would not know how to start a band today. If I had to do it from scratch, I wouldn't know what to do. So I don't really have any opinion or advice. We don't really play Canada as much as we play the rest of the world. That's just a fact. So when I think of the scene, I think of the rock scene in general, like the big global rock scene and all the rock bands in Italy and in the UK and in Holland and, all those. I think of it in terms of that. And we try to help out, some of the bands and take them out on tour. Not necessarily, they can't be Canadian all the time. In fact, I can't remember if we have taken a Canadian band, but we always try and take out like up and coming young, or if not young, like, deserving bands that need the exposure that maybe our tour can give, our audience can give to them. And we've done that multiple times in the past. That's how I see.
Right. Because we've actually lost that in the industry. Going to shows back in the early 80s and 70s, I would go see Kiss and there would be the Headpins. I'd go see Aerosmith and there would be Bryan Adams opening up. There would be these Toronto opened up for a show. Now it's all these package. It's Kiss and Aerosmith. It's, have the bigger bands sort of lost this sort of feeling of having to pay it back or pay it forward and taking out these younger bands because we're stuck in these all package tours and they're sort of like, hey, what about us? How do we get noticed?
Well, I think those bands are at a different level. And a young up and coming band that is like kind of stapled at the end of a huge 4-package, legendary tour won't even get noticed. Actually, it might, work against them. They'll get booed. It's happened to us many times. And so I think the best route for young bands is to go with like kind of B and C level bands like us, like playing the clubs with us, not hitting the big stadiums with Kiss. Although, even though you probably won't sell one T-shirt at a Kiss show opening up, if you're on your first CD or first release, you'll still do it. No one will turn that down. But trust me, you will not sell one T-shirt for the whole duration of the tour.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you about your personal experience, because the first time I saw you live was at the Bell Center, or was it the Molson Center back then? Anyway, was that in Montreal, Sebastian Bach and Guns N' Roses.
Oh, you should see the old clubs that we used to play in Montreal. We used to go there and rip the town apart, on a weekend. That was a lot of fun those days. But was that
Foufoune Electrique? The Foufoune, that's the greatest place ever.
Played there many times.
That is that's one of the greatest rock clubs in North America. Honestly, it's fun. It's fun as hell.
Cafe Campus. I can't.
Cafe Campus. What else is there? Corona. There's
No.
But for that Guns N' Roses tour, which is what, 2008, 2009?
10.
Was it really 10? Wow.
Yeah, 2010.
Was that beneficial to you, or did people just not buy the T-shirt and just boo you and go, fuck off? I want to see Guns. Like, how was it for you?
A little of both.
Okay.
When it came to the Canadian tour, we're a Canadian band. There's a certain amount of people in the audience that know us. Maybe they know us a little better than others, but for the most part, if you're going to a rock show in Canada, you would have at least heard of our band. The name is familiar.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we weren't in a losing situation there. It was, I'd like to think we maybe won a few people over. And then, actually, unbeknownst to a lot of people in Canada, Guns ended up taking us on tour for the rest of the year all over the world. So we played 9 more countries with the band for 2010, and it would be like I'd be home thinking I'm home for 3 weeks, and we'd get a call going, "Can you be at
Can you be
Romania?"
in Germany next week? Yeah.
Yeah, like we played Romania, they took us to Russia, we played Finland, we played Norway, we played Ireland. So it was a wonderful year, and in certain places where we'd never played before, in Romania, the advantage was we weren't stapled at the end of a huge lineup of bands. We were main support. So it was us and Guns N' Roses in, say, Romania or in Ireland or in Moscow. So we hopefully benefited from that. It's hard to tell, like you can't really. We haven't been back to Moscow since, but first of all, it was a great experience. But at least we got to play, and the audience was great. We got a good reception. So being main support is a world of difference than being first of 5.
Yeah, no kidding. Because first of 5, nobody cares. Just
Yeah, yeah. And
yeah.
and the second band of the night has already got like 5 gold records under their belt type of package.
Yeah, and listen, I know from the fan perspective, I go to the shows and I show up at at 10 in the morning. I'm one of those. I need to get there early, but I have a lot of folks that'll text me and say, "Hey, can you look on the sheet and see at what time Guns actually plays, because I want to get there 10 minutes before." And you're just like,
Yeah,
come to the whole show.
yeah. It's a bummer when you're the first band to hear those stories. It's like, oh man, if it's not because of work, because then that's different. But if it's just because you want to watch, I don't know, Price is Right for a little longer, that sucks.
I get it all the time. Like, hey, I'm gonna be in the pool with my kids till like 7. Can you just tell me when Danko is starting, and I'll come. It's just like, oh, just come for the whole fucking day. Come
Oh,
on.
if it's for us,
Yeah.
then forget it.
They can show up. I want to ask you just real quick in terms of content and content creators, because you're a content creator with the podcast and of course the music. We talk often about how Spotify and all the services don't pay artists enough, and of course, from the podcast perspective, I go, don't pay them enough. We don't get paid, period. So, and I also want to talk about the music journalism, because this is my issue. This is my political issue. Should all content creators be paid? I mean, when I make a podcast and a website takes the news and respreads it, should that be monetized? Should we be paid? It is,
Yeah, but theoretically, yeah. But is there the money to spread it around? That's the only thing.
Okay, because that's always been my discussion, is that we talk a lot about how the musicians don't get paid, but a lot of the other content creators don't get paid as all. So there should be some kind of investment for content, I would think.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. For me, I guess I've never heard myself described like a content creator before. I'm going to add that to the bio.
Well, I mean, it is sort of the mot du jour, right? We're content creators.
Influencer, is that another one? I don't think I'm either, but that's the reason why I've never deliberately monetized my podcast. There's no GoFundMe thing or Patreon thing. Not that I think it's bad to do, because friends do that who have podcasts, and I don't fault them for it. But for me, I didn't want. Yeah, for me, I think it would ruin the fun aspect for me. It would become kind of a job thing. And I do it. I have the luxury of being able to do a podcast simply because I want to do it. So right now I don't want to do the podcast. So I've given myself 2 months off. There's no money man knocking at the door needing for me to do it, so it's not on any sort of platform or professional podcast company or group. I've deliberately not even knocked on any of those doors to get on those platforms. So I just do it for fun. And that way I'm not disappointed by, lack of listens or wonderfully surprised when they do spike up. It's just for me. Actually, when I do the intros to each episode, I'm just talking to myself,
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
yeah.
I agree. Listen, my podcast and my show is basically like you. It's just for fun.
Yeah.
I have other stuff that pays for me, but it doesn't pay, and it's just that I've had this discussion over time with people who, they go into and I don't want to name websites, but their websites will take all their stuff, and they go, wow, my name was on this website, and I go, how much do they pay you? Well, they don't. I go, yeah, but they're getting paid. They should be anyway.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah,
It's
but I'm with
frustrating
you.
that way.
I'm with you. I don't
That's
get.
why I just want to keep money out of it, and keep it fun, and I don't want to say pure, or innocent, but just keep it for fun.
Well, listen. In the same way, I guess I'm keeping it pure because I don't do the Patreon and I don't do any of that stuff, and
Not that it's not pure if you do it, Jesus, because I have friends who do it, and I encourage it, and I watch them from the sidelines, and I encourage them.
You watch the unpure from the side. It's the unpure. Oh my Lord.
I feel it would be like a job, and I do it I do the podcast on days off on tour. It's the way I can just chill out, So I don't want it to be another thing that I gotta meet a deadline.
Well, yeah, listen. I agree with you on that. I mean, I have quit my podcast about 8 times this year so far, and then I'll not do it for 3 days, and then I'll go fuck, and I'll do like 8 episodes, and I'll just go all right. And I'm hitting that point right now where I'm not gonna do anything, and then of course it'll be like 5 episodes before now and Valentine's Day.
It's good for you. Yeah, that's great.
I know. I get motivated. I get down and then I get motivated. Danko Jones, A Rock Supreme is the last album. Talk to me about the importance of making new music and staying creative. Now, I know when we talk about heritage acts or, Aerosmith and Metallica and stuff, they really don't need to make new music. They can just sort of tread water and play the 15 greatest hits and give the fans 75 minutes, cast a check, go home. For you, though, and for a band that is, as you said, in a B and a C level, new music seems to be exceptionally important because you have to sort of keep it moving. You got to keep moving forward. You got to be feeding the. You got to be a content creator.
Right.
Talk to me about that, and what is sort of the plan to release new music? Do you have sort of this every 2 years we write something, or when I have 11 songs I'll record? I'm like, how do you sort of gauge when you need to put a new product out? And I sorry to make it so commercial and crass, but
Well, luckily, I love doing it. I love writing and playing rock. So even though I guess if I take a step back, it would sound like I'm just selling a product. Me being so close to it, I don't see that. It's fun as hell. So I don't see it as like a product I'm putting out. Having said that, we do usually put out a new album every 2 years. And that just to keep things going. I wish we had the luxury of, doing 11 songs when, creativity hits us like lightning. I have a feeling I will never put out an album if that happens. I like to work towards a deadline. Because it gets me motivated. And that goes back to the podcast. If there's a deadline, I just can't rest until it's done, and the podcast is for relaxing. So when we were given a deadline for the new album, we have to have it by this time so we can go on tour, et cetera, then the, motivation starts moving and the songs start being written. And that happens every about 2.5 years. unfortunately for us, we've never, gotten a double platinum top 20 song or whatever. So we have to keep going. We have to keep working. We're a real working band. Hey, things could be different if, we hit number one and we're as big as the Foo Fighters next year. Then maybe it'll take longer for us to put out the next record because we'll want to enjoy the spoils. But as much as I complain about how it's, like we're constantly touring and constantly working, stepping back, and this year has allowed me to step back and look at the body of work that we've done. I'm very proud of it. Like all the bands that I love, there's, ups and downs. There's admitted lows as much as there are proud highs. So as the body of work. So it's fun, to step back and look at it. Unfortunately, under these times to look at it, it's not so much fun, but it does exist. So, 9 studio albums and 3 compilation albums of original material. It's fun to look back.
So, okay, and we'll start wrapping up on this, but let's look at the industry, because I asked you about the Canadian industry before. We are looking right now in the pandemic to maybe 80% of the clubs not being around. How is that going to affect your business moving forward? Because some of these clubs aren't going to come back. Some of the investors just aren't going to invest. They're going to be, well, if there's a pandemic in 3 years from now, I'm not even going to invest $100,000 to open this up. If you're Aerosmith or Metallica, and I know I keep going back to those bands, eventually the stadiums will open, eventually the festivals will open, and they'll just show up and they'll, what happens if 8 out of 10 clubs closes? What happens to Danko Jones? Do you just go to live streaming? Do you charge more for the tickets for a special one evening in Cal? I mean, how do you see this moving forward?
It's a very scary idea if it takes effect that, all the clubs will close and none will open back up. Having said that, you keep bringing up Metallica and Aerosmith. Did you see that tour when they played with Black Crowes and Warrant?
I did. I saw that in Toronto. That was that's when I was younger, because I actually drove from Montreal to Toronto, watched the show, and then drove home to Montreal.
Wow, pretty hardcore. Wow.
Now, if I did that today, that wouldn't end well. It just wouldn't end well. Because Metallica played for what was that? Exhibition Stadium. They played for what, 2.5 hours? I'm just like, will they ever stop? I have to get home.
Oh, Metallica opened that show. I was there too.
Oh yeah.
They only played for 45 minutes.
No, it felt like, I know what, that show felt super long, but of course I had like a 6.5 hour drive in my body. And then I was worried about having to drive home. But I got home at like 8 a.m. with no sleep, and the joys of being young.
Amazing. I mean, we used to do that too. We'd play Ottawa and then drive home.
Yeah. Well, Ottawa.
We did that in Montreal too. We drove.
Oh wow.
All the way to Montreal. We were stuck in a snowstorm. We ended up showing up to the club at Lafon late. And we played for 15 minutes and we drove back.
You played for 15 minutes?
Yeah, because we missed the slot. We were so late. They let us play, load our gear in. We played for 15 minutes and then we drove back.
Who were you opening for? Or what was the gig?
I believe it was the New Bomb Turks.
Oh, wow.
At Fafuni Streak, yeah. Back in 98.
What's the best part of playing Montreal? The potholes or the orange cones?
Oh, I can't remember. The potholes, really?
It's our national sport. Potholes and orange cones. That's Quebec for you.
Right. I think because of that, especially because of that show, it's the weather. I'll never forget that. Because you're freaking out. You're in the van going, we're supposed to be at sound check right now, and we're 2 hours away from the club. So that kind of stuff will drive you nuts. But I've had great experiences since then in Montreal for shows. But getting back to your question, have no idea. Like everyone else, I'm going by the seat of my pants. I think we all are as a band, and hoping that if old clubs can't make it through this pandemic, new clubs will rise in their ashes, hopefully with the same people who are still involved. And I think there might be some sort of trepidation for investors to come in. At the same time, I think once I look at this past summer, once it got warmer, people started to loosen up a little bit from the first wave. I think now that vaccines actually exist, and the more people get it, I think people's confidence will increase again, and things will hopefully get back to normal. I mean, I'm very hopeful and positive about that. And yeah, there's going to be clubs that will, and bands too, won't be able to.
Well, it's not just the bands; it's going to be all the guys around them. I know a lot of roadies that are currently working in garden centers, that are currently letter carriers,
Sure.
and the one guy that's a mailman or letter carrier has said to me, "I'm not going back." I go, "But you're touring with one of the top bands from the '70s." He's like, "I'm not going back. I've now got this. It's X amount. I've got what do you call it? What's a 401k in the States? I guess they call it. RS." He goes, "I'm not going back." And I go, "But you have to. Your band's going to tour." He goes, "Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to risk it again. What if something comes up? What if I?" And it's just like, wow, there's a whole lot of unknown, I don't want to call them victims because they're not necessarily victims, but all kinds of unknown casualties that are taking shrapnel by this,
I think the unknown factor is always there when you go into rock in the 2020s. This isn't the first choice for a lot of people in terms of vocations. So the unknown will always be there. I mean, for us, rock is a dwindling music. It's not even in the top 10 most popular forms of music anymore. So
can I just take you up on that for 1 second? Because this is how I hear this all the time. Gene Simmons, rock is dead, rock is dead, rock is dead.
Oh, no, I disagree with Gene completely.
Exactly.
Don't misunderstand.
And by the way, we haven't even talked Kiss today, but isn't rock just doing what jazz did? I mean,
Well, that's what I say. I say that all the time. Rock is going the way of jazz.
Correct.
And it's going underground, which to me, as
like
a
the jazz
rock
clubs.
fan,
Yes.
I actually, in terms of the cool factor of rock, it's actually cool that it's going underground, because for so long it was seen as like this cheesy popular thing.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah.
You look at in the 1920s and 30s, the jazz age, and then you come now and you've got the Toronto Jazz Festival, the Montreal Jazz. I think that's where rock is headed. You don't hear jazz necessarily on top 20 rate. I mean, of course you don't. But don't tell me that the Toronto Jazz Festival is a failure. Do not tell me the Montreal Jazz Festival is a failure. And I think eventually there will be, maybe in 2050, the Montreal Rock Festival or the
Sure.
I think we're headed that way.
Well, there's Heavy Montreal already.
Yeah, sort of, kind of, if it comes back. Let's hope it does.
If it doesn't, it will come back in another form, I think, and hopefully with the same people behind the scenes doing it.
Yeah. Evenko is a great promoter, a fabulous promoter. They treat people right. I will say that about Evenko.
Yeah, so I just hope that, we're still in the middle of this whole pandemic, but the difference is this year is vaccines exist. So we couldn't say that this time last year. So that was the scary aspect of it. So hopefully we can just get it out there to everybody. So once we do that, then we can start playing again.
We'll hope. We'll leave it on that. And as you said on your podcast, trust the science. Honestly, just trust the science. That's the way to go.
Oh, it's been another virus of stupidity alongside the actual virus, where people are not believing doctors and scientists. I play hack guitar for a living. Okay, what do I know? I will listen to someone who spent like almost decade, like studying they're, like an epidemiologist. Like, they know what they're talking about. Like,
Listen, I'm in Quebec where our government has, first of all, imposed a curfew but sent all the kids back to school, has said that rapid testing is not necessary, and has said that ventilations in schools, just open the windows. Don't worry about HEPA filters. And so that's the stupidity. See, now I'm getting political, but that's the stupidity I'm dealing with in this province. I mean, all cast aside all the other stuff, our government does not basically believe in the science, and it's just like, for fuck's sake.
I think we're in the same boat with you guys in Ontario. So don't get me started about Doug Ford. So
No, but at least they're like, maybe we should have some filters. Maybe we should keep the school closed in red zones, not just go in and open the windows. Who cares? It's minus 20 outside. Put a jacket on. I mean, come on. What the fuck is Quebec doing? It's anyway. We'll leave it on that.
Okay, I was gonna, yeah. We could go back and forth for forever comparing Ontario and Quebec. I'll keep it. Well, all we know is that we just the people in power need to. I just think the people in power are just they got to just get their shit together, as is always the case perennially. I mean, it's always the same.
All right. This is where I've become disenfranchised, and I'm going to get off my stay, but I look at what's going on with the kids in the school, and I look at them saying no HEPA filters. Quebec in the spring said don't wear masks. Masks are dangerous, they said. And I can only surmise that they are going against the science because they want to make sure that business stays open. And yes, of course, it's important to have, but they are putting it on the backs of kids, and they're letting kids get, asymptomatic and bring it home and they're letting teachers get sick, and there's potential for death and all that. And they're just ignoring it so that the bucks keep rolling in. And I think I think the Quebec government is currently criminal in their behavior. I don't know too much about what Doug Ford's doing because I'm just so upset by looking at the Quebec news that I'm not paying.
I mean, we have our issues with the Ontario government as well. I mean, when it comes to the COVID rollout and the how they're dealing with retirement homes and schools. So
there you go.
There's I'm gonna just shut up.
Yeah, because
I don't like Doug Ford. What Doug Ford's doing, the premier of Ontario.
Yeah, and listen, I know the name and I know the reputation, but I'm not following his policies up close. I'm following a little bit what Kenny's doing in Alberta and the way he's treating teachers too. I mean, during the pandemic, he has now taken away their retirement fund. Like, they've taken back control of it. And it's just like, the fuck are you doing? Like, just focus on making sure no kid dies and no teacher dies. Let's focus on that. And all this other...
I'm with you on that. There's no value with teachers anymore in education with these new government. Anyways.
No. Yep. Now you're preaching to the choir. My dad was a teacher, and I think the lack of respect shown by Canadian governments over the years of budget cuts. It was always, we need to save money. Fucking close the classrooms. You know what?
Getting political, Mitch. You're
I know.
doing exactly what you said you don't do.
I know.
At the top of this conversation.
I blame you. No. But you know what? The teacher thing is the one that really burns. That's why you don't want to go to my Twitter and see me mouthing off about teachers all day. But yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is like, getting back to our first topic of conversation is again, I have to stress, I'm not a political type of person, but in these politically charged times,
right, in the context.
Yeah, it's like, someone's got to say, like, it's not good to be racist. That's
I know.
just what I basically want to tweet out,
Yeah.
And I haven't really said that in a lot of the years that we've been a band, but just because it's so charged these days, I find myself having to say it. I mean, there was like Blackout Tuesday in June.
Right.
So, and the music industry was fully affected by it. So I felt I could say some things, and, things kind of snowball after that.
Yeah, and then you see my buddy who's at the beat in Montreal get that kind of tweet,
Yeah.
and
And that really,
okay, now it's time. Now
exactly. And it was like, I think I had one of those moments. I can't pinpoint it when I said, I should say something, man. I got to say something because I don't feel comfortable not saying something. So I can't remember the actual moment, but it happened. And something like your friend getting that tweet would be a moment for me to go, what the, you know,
Yeah, that one was a bit anyway. But the Mohawk Nation in Quebec is not always well. In fact, it's never treated nicely. It's constant harassment, constant abuse, constant. It's just I just don't I just don't see how they don't break down. I mean, I couldn't take that day in and day. I just couldn't, and yet they
yeah.
face it day in and day out. Anyway, you know what? I got your album here, Born a Lion, in front of me. They were born a lion. There's a lion nation for you right there. Born lions. Danko, just an absolute pleasure. Thank you. And
Well, it's good talking to you, Mitch. I'm not doing these interviews too much these days just because there's really nothing to talk about other than, the coronavirus, which is not the best fun thing to talk about.
no, but I think we got around this pretty good. I mean, usually when I prepare, it's always ask about the album, ask about the tour, and then we'll see about where it goes from there.
Right.
And I didn't have that roadmap today, and I thought, okay, well, if we get 15 minutes, God bless us. And here we are at 47, and I don't think we
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we had a dull moment. So
I don't think so. I mean, I hope I didn't step in it either. Like sometimes I've got too big of a mouth where I step in, stuff that I say something that was like, I shouldn't have said that, or I reveal too much. But I think we were okay.
yeah, I think we navigated that very well. Here, let me just turn this off. But before I turn it off, thank you, sir, merci, as we say in Montreal. Hold on a second, and